Greetings, peace be with you. Been a minute since I filmed one of these vertical videos. Let me know in the comments. It seems like my vibe is different when I'm on these vertical videos. It's more laid back, it's more in the flow, it's more in the moment. Let me know in the comments what you feel about that. But in this video, I want to share with you how to swallow the red pill. What does that even mean? You're going to discover that in this video, at least through the lens of my perception right now. And by the end of this video, how to actually master the matrix and what that actually means and how that is a metaphor from the movie, right? If you haven't checked out the movie The Matrix, you're sleeping, man. You're sleeping. You got to check out this movie, because I remember I checked it out when I was like, I don't know, 8, 9, 10, something like that. Don't exactly remember when, but I was a kid. I didn't understand. I'm like, what is this weird movie? And then I checked it out like 4 years ago, and I was like, wow, that is, I don't know what that sound was, but that is one of the most applicable metaphors to real life. And I think I've watched it like 4 or 5 times at this point, and each time it's like, whoa, like how were the producers this accurate in terms of how the world actually works? Okay, so the premise is simply that there is this AI force, this AI intelligence that has taken over, and it has created this simulation, and it is feeding off of the energy of the people within that simulation, right? And that is no different from the world that we are living in right now, as you will soon discover. Okay, now with that being said, this is the 6th preview video in the Monk Mode series, and Monk Mode is really about going inwards, a journey of self-illumination, so that we can get an awareness on the games being played around us. And if you have been watching the previous videos in this series, you know that the Monk Mode challenge is open for enrollment, and stick to the very end of this video, or just click the link below in the description, or go to monkmodechallenge.com to enroll and learn more about that. Okay, now what is it that keeps us plugged in to the matrix? What keeps us plugged in is our own perceptions, okay? And the primary perception that keeps us plugged in is who we think we are. Before I had my spiritual awakening, I was caught in the cycle of loops in my head. I would think a certain thought and I would identify with my thoughts. But I think the first step in the whole process of spiritual awakening is realizing it's kind of like a horse, right? There's this wild beast, there's this horse, it's going crazy. And then a spiritual awakening is when you wake up and realize you're not the horse, you're not the animal, you are the rider of the horse, and you have control over where that horse goes once you learn how to tame the beast. And first step in spiritual awakening is learning to tame what is going on between your own ears, right? What is going on between your own mind, the drama, the monkey mind that swings from thought to thought, as they would describe in Buddhist philosophy. And our job is not just to awaken spiritually. Of course, you can just take some psychedelic substances like shrooms or LSD or anything that really gives you that spike, and you're like, whoa, I thought I was my thoughts, and here I am. I'm woken up to the reality that I am not my thoughts. But how that actually becomes a part of who you are is when you have spiritual practice in your life. And this is why meditation is an essential component of living a spiritual life, right? Spirituality is not about thinking spiritually, it's about living spiritually. And when we meditate is when we get space between who we really are and our thoughts, okay? And this whole conception, the matrix, there is like, it has been propagated for a long time, okay? And when we turn back the clocks to the time of René Descartes, if you don't know who that is, he was a French philosopher. And what he said is, I think, therefore I am. And that led to this whole creation of the mechanistic model of the universe. He was a proponent of that, basically, which states that, yeah, the whole universe functions based off of predetermined laws, and once we have an awareness of those laws, we can tell exactly how the universe functions. And that led on to the development of Newtonian physics, right, of classical physics, thinking that everything is just taking place according to these given laws, and human thought is outside of that realm. And of course, in the modern era, we have quantum physics, and I'm not going to begin to even pretend that I understand what the whole deal with that is, but it reveals to us that human thought, human perception has an effect on the way that reality plays out. And what keeps us plugged into the matrix is thinking that we are our thoughts. And when we think we are our thoughts are actually being hijacked by outside influences, whether that is the mainstream media, whether that is the fear mongering, whether that is the people around us. And what keeps us plugged into the matrix is being plugged into the identification with our thoughts. And this is something I continue to find myself in, because if I, for example, someone cuts me off in traffic, I notice that I experience this surge of emotion. But because I have a daily meditation practice, I'm able to get the distance. I can pull back from it and choose my response rather than react based on conditioning. And that really is the first step in spiritual awakening. So if we go back to the movie, The Matrix, we have Neo, which really represents the neocortex, right? Which represents the head. And Neo in The Matrix is Thomas Anderson. And his alias online, as he is a computer hacker, right? He's hacking the matrix. His name is Neo, right? The prefrontal cortex, the neocortex, right? And he gets a message. He's like, okay, yo, follow the white rabbit. If you know the movie, you know what I'm talking about, right? So, and by following the white rabbit, he meets Trinity, right? Trinity represents the heart, right? So when the head is in alignment with the heart is when they go to figure out what reality really is. Okay, and that is when they go to meet Morpheus, who is the mentor, right? And Morpheus, according to Greek mythology, is the god of dreams, right? And his purpose was to enter the dreams of mortals as a messenger of the gods to deliver the divine message. And when the head and the heart are functioning in harmony is when we begin to wake up to reality for what it really is, when we begin to tap into our higher self, our higher knowing, rather than getting plugged in. Okay, what keeps us plugged in is thinking that we are our thoughts. And the fact that you can observe your thoughts means that you are not your thoughts, right? Who is it that is observing the thoughts? That is who you are. And another thing that keeps us plugged in, thinking that we are our identity, thinking that we are our body, thinking that we are our experiences, that we are black, white, brown, Muslim, Christian, Hindu. All of these labels were created by the elite puppet masters that are just playing people against each other, and the whole agenda is to divide and rule people. Okay, so the matrix is here, they're playing people and they are feeding off of the low vibration energy, and that, like, humanity is stuck in that cycle of scarcity, of lack, of fear, of thinking that there is not enough, through this perception, through this projection of scarcity, right? So when we bring our head and our heart into alignment, that is when we begin to access the source of true knowledge, of the higher knowing, which is the truth, through Morpheus, who is the god of dreams, right? So you can see how the matrix plays into as a metaphor for real life that we're experiencing right now as well, right? So when our heart and our head is aligned is when we wake up to who we really are as the observer of the experience that we're having. And that observer, that eternal presence, that eternal consciousness is at the essence of every human personality. In the Hindu philosophy, they would say that it's the Atma, right? The divine core of every personality, of every human personality. And when we wake up to the reality, okay, we are the observer, that is when we can begin to master the matrix, okay? Now, the matrix functions based off of perception deception, making you believe certain things that are not necessarily true, but that you believe are true. And when a large portion of people begin believing a certain thought, a certain idea, then those thoughts come together and form like a structure, completely different thought structure, which in the philosophy of transurfing is known as a pendulum, right? When a lot of people are thinking the same thoughts, it becomes an entire separate entity, which takes on a life of its own. For example, a lot of people think that the education system is the best way and getting good grades means that you're smart, or getting a job is good, right? Of course, now we're going through an awakening where people are waking up to the reality that this is simply not true, that the education system might not have our best interests at heart, that it doesn't prepare us for the real world, that the medical system is not functioning based off of the best interest of the client, and that really it functions based off of keeping people sick, right? So people are waking up, but there are still a large portion of humanity that are caught in certain destructive cycles, right? So mastering the matrix, what it comes down to, okay, the primary mechanism of control that the elites are using to feed off of the energy, take a guess. What do you think it is? It is, as this motorbike passes by, it is the financial system. Okay, everything on this planet is driven through that lens. And when we look at how the game is being played right now, putting people, okay, how the banking system works, like in a nutshell, it's like you have these banks that create money that doesn't exist called credit. They loan that money out, they charge interest on it, and they keep charging it, and they control the money supply, right? And they can take the interest rates up or down depending on what serves their agenda. And then when they give out more loans than are paid back, then they seize the property. Like for example, right, I take a loan on a house, I have that house, and I pay interest on that, even though that credit didn't exist. It just created out of nothing, basically, right? The banks can do that. And then I'm like, okay, shit, I don't have money to pay back on this house right now, and I don't pay it back, and then the house actually becomes the possession of the bank. And that is how the wealth shifts into the 1%, okay, by controlling the banking system, by controlling the financial system. Now, this is not to say it's good or bad or right or wrong. The way I think about it sometimes, it's like when we look at the beings, for example, chickens, when we look at cows, when we look at animals that humans have cultivated to get energy from, the vegetables, the plants, all of these cultivations, agriculture. I mean, what's to say that we are not creating the matrix for them, whereby they are just living their lives and they are feeding us energy? So there's no right, wrong, good or bad. It's like these beings that are benefiting off of feeding off of this low vibration energy. They have to stay alive as well. So there's no judgment over here. It's just about understanding that when we wake up is when we can become the conscious creators of our reality. And the financial system is a large part of the control mechanism. So what I'm saying is over here is that we have to understand how the financial system works and how we can use it rather than use us, right? And the number one rule of the rich is that they do not work for money, money works for them. And that really is the shift where you can begin to embody it. Okay, I highly recommend you check out Robert Kiyosaki's books. He really reveals the intricacies of what is going on behind the scenes and how you can have a rich mentality, okay? Understand that rich and poor, these are not about how much cash you have in the bank account. This is about your relationship with abundance versus scarcity, right? Your relationship with time at the end of the day, right? Because like some people are so rich that all they have is money, and some people may be broke, but they're never poor because they have the mentality of abundance. They see what they are truly capable of, okay? So mastering the matrix is about understanding first and foremost that you are not your thoughts, you are not your body, you are not your experiences, you are not your labels. You are the experience, you are the consciousness behind that, you are the awareness behind that, okay? Once you do that, you begin to wake up and you realize that you can create reality according to your will. Once you realize that when you control the inside, once you bring your head and your heart into alignment, that is when your hands can go and start bending the structure of reality. That is when you begin taking consistent action towards actually creating the structure of reality in accordance with what you seek to create. And mastering the matrix, okay, like the financial system is a huge one, but also understanding the food system, understanding the mind-body system is being impacted by the food that we feed. The digestive system is some miracle of creation that allows us to take the food that we eat and creates it into this most complicated machine in the universe that we know to this point, which is the human body, which is the human brain, right? We use that energy and it becomes us. So be aware of what you put inside your body. Be aware of what you allow into your mind. The information that you allow into your mind ends up becoming who you are. And when we don't have an awareness, when we don't keep the temple of our mind and our body guarded against negative influences, is when we become slaves to the system of the matrix. And this is exactly why I've created the Monk Mode Challenge, to empower you with not only the step-by-step roadmap, but to give you the daily accountability and coaching every single day to really keep you at that high vibration and focused on that which you seek to create. Okay, so the challenge will be closing down on Monday, and I'm not sure whether I can offer this ever again because I'm offering daily coaching. Okay, every single day, getting on a live call on Zoom, in the Facebook group as well, daily accountability. I don't know if I can offer that again because it requires a lot of my time, but I'm sincerely committed just to seeing what can happen over the next 30 days if I do put in the time, and if you put in the time in investing in yourself as well. Okay, so if you are ready to level up, if you are done with consuming all of this information all the time without actually implementing, then I encourage you to open up a new tab in your browser, go to monkmodechallenge.com and transform your life by joining this community, this movement, this elevation of consciousness. Okay, because at the end of the day, like I've said, this is not about more information, this is about implementation. This is about creating that collective energy that we can create through that community that allows us to stick with our goals, to stick with that focus and create that spiral in the right direction. Okay, so with that, I conclude this video. I hope that you got value from it. I hope that you bring your head, your heart, and eventually your hands into alignment so that you can consciously create a life that you love and understand the metaphor of the matrix, understand the mechanisms of control, and you will soon begin to create reality in the image of your highest ideals and values. Okay, so much love to you. May the peace and power of the infinite creator be with you, and I will catch you in the next video.